Dr. Friday, you and some of your members have just paid your respects to Sir James. What was that like?
Extremely emotional, Kenton, because it's one thing to be thinking about it from a distance, so to speak, but to be here in his presence for the first time, as he was lying there, it was extremely emotional, and it will take some time for me personally, and I'm sure for many of my colleagues, to come to terms with this, because he's such a larger than life figure. He's been there forever, throughout my entire conscious lifetime, basically. And so it was a recognition that it really is the passing of a titan, somebody who has been so pivotal to the politics of this country for so long and has accomplished so much. I'm honored to be a part of it and to have known him for so long and to have benefited from his counsel. But I tell you, it's difficult to really come to terms with, but I'm sure that we will all in time reflect on his many accomplishments and understand that his life was well lived.
Did you imagine that seeing Sir James's body lying in state would have had this impact on you? Did you think that this is the way that you would have responded?
Well, it's hard to know with emotions, and sometimes we feel that we are so, well-traveled and well-versed in these matters that somehow we could contain it. But to be honest, when I saw Sir James lying there, it was an overpowering moment. And no, I didn't imagine, but I was, in a sense, I shouldn't say I didn't imagine. I was prepared, because I know that sometimes this happens, and I have been preparing to deal with it for some time. But you can't predict how this will happen, because emotions are emotions.
Well, Kenton, I remind you that at the last Parliament, in my tribute, I described Sir James's passing as the end of an era. And this morning in the book of condolence, I wrote, "We will miss you, a politician's politician." As I stood facing Sir James in his casket, I not only remembered and was reminded of our own mortality, but as I bowed in reference, I momentarily lost a sense of time and where I was, until I caught myself that others have to file past. The last occasion I was in Bequia and in conversation with Sir James, it was at the funeral of Rocky McIntosh, who had served him as a senator. And after that funeral service, which Sir James spoke, he retired to his hotel, and I also went there to have lunch. It was raining, we sat, we had lunch, and he was, even though complaining about his last fall and injury, he was still so full of life and so assured of many years ahead, and called on his secretary, who was assisting him with the writing of his book, to draw attention and to highlight how elated he was that he was on yet another book project. And all of the conversation indicated that Sir James felt that, notwithstanding that immediate challenge of the fall and the recovery, there was yet a lot of political life left in him. Today, that conversation came back to me with a richness of a great man who, in his own form and humility, served and served well, and evening his lying in state reminds us of the tremendous and awesome responsibility that we as politicians have in rendering public service, and how much it is that we should hold sacred the temporary trust given to us by our various constituencies and electorate. I certainly will miss Sir James. You know, I have been a vice president for near 20 years now. I had the privilege to have served him as a public relations officer. The very tie that I wear now, Kenton, was given to me at a function at the Victoria Park by Sir James. And the medal that I wear on my breast, the MB, colonial albeit, was granted to me by Sir James. And if you saw the citation from Her Majesty the Queen, it was for industrial relations service. People know me for a lot of things in St. Vincent and the Grenadines: politics, sports, academia. But people would not associate me. But this was one of the things that came out of my contribution during that period of the Grand Beach Accord, when he thought, then as the head of the Employees Federation, I played such a pivotal role. It is that deep, the sense of trust and relationship. I repeat myself. I will miss him, but I'm also confident that I will see him again.
It was a very telling moment. As I looked into Sir James's eyes, his face, I recall the numerous conversations we've had over the years, especially those over the last couple of months and this year. And I remember in all his recollection of his years in politics, he has always been proud when whatever he did resulted in the upliftment of the people. It's clear to me that he was driven by that. And as I was saying elsewhere, that is exemplified in his land reform program, buying those estates and making them available to the people who previously worked on them and whose parents worked on them. It's exemplified in the way he had a public service, being disciplined and professional, and in the way he allowed the utilities, particularly the water and electricity, to become world class. And he did that by removing the politics from them and allowing people to do their work. And to me that shows a tremendous gut and a yearning for what is right. And those are the things that I remember most about him. And as I looked into his face, I reflected on those more than anything else. Not about his political achievements, but how he was able to use that. I remember my days visiting the Grenadines in the 70s, and the changes in the Grenadines only started when he rose to power. The Grenadines being neglected, and the people of the Grenadines are still being neglected, and that was one of his passions, to see all of the people get what was duly theirs.
Mr. Scott, you were in Sir James's cabinet for how long?
As long as it lasted.
From 1984 to 2000?
Yeah.
2001. Well, he demitted in October 2004.
Yeah.
How do you remember Sir James Mitchell?
Well, he was my mentor, a father figure, a caring person, and somebody who had paid particular attention to the downtrodden of this country. It may not seem so to many, but history will repeat itself. There won't be a second Sir James. That much I can tell you. There won't be a second Sir James. He was caring, he was loving, and in all our ups and downs and troubles we had, we could have gone to him. He always found time to listen, and he would give us the kind of response that we expected. Always willing to share his experience with us. I don't know if he's replaceable. Gone but not forgotten.
Can you share with us any, like maybe one fond memory, one interaction that you would remember for a long time?
Well, it might sound jocular, but he was the only member of my cabinet, along with John Horn, who continued to repeat my middle name as if it was his own. It's a hard name to repeat, and it seems to me as though he studied the pronunciation because it's a French long name, and every time he saw me, he would greet me, Casavillanios. That's my middle name. He was the only member of cabinet, along with John Horn, who was able to repeat it without flutter. And I remember him for that because, you know, we had our turbulent days, but in the end, we were the best of companions. There was nothing that was too good for Sir James to share with me. He remembered me on every particular occasion. Even his last birthday celebration, he called me and he said, Jerry, I'm in my 90th and I want you to be there. Are you coming? I said, Sir James, what else do you expect? I can't say no to you. And I showed up this 90th expression. I gave him my last tribute there, not expecting that this was going to come because he was looking so well. He was immaculately dressed. He entertained quite a crowd. And those are the days. Those are the days.
Did you come up from Channel 1 this morning specifically to pay your respect to Sir James?
I came yesterday. Yes, I came especially to pay my respect.
How do you remember Sir James?
Oh, there's so many things I remember about Sir James. He was a great leader, a friend of the poor, down to earth. You can stop him anywhere and talk to him. He's always willing to listen and to give sound advice to anybody, nobody in particular, but just everybody or anybody willing to listen. We will miss him a lot, especially in the Southern Grenadines, because he used to come to the Southern Grenadines in the early days when we had no proper roads, no electricity, and not even proper airport, and things like that. No banks. But those are the good old days. We go over to Bequia tomorrow. Tomorrow is the funeral. One part here, the other part in Bequia.
So you're going to go to Bequia?
Yes, there are a lot of people coming up from the Grenadines, Southern Grenadines, by yacht tomorrow from the three islands, Union Island, Myro, and Cano. So they will go straight to Bequia for the next funeral service. We'll miss him, we love him, and we'll miss him. He was a great leader.
Sir James, I could remember him in the days when they had market over there, the old time market, when we used to go there and have meetings, right? So James used to be a nice fella. We used to go and rag other people for Mr. James. Oh, he's a blessed man. And Mr. James, he always liked my children, especially Jasmine Metz in America. That is what she got. Father, oh yes, he's a blessed, blessed man. I'll never forget that man until I die. Make his soul rest in peace.